Hey, it's Debbie Levitt from P-Type, and welcome to the pilot of our Certificate in UX Design course. This is going to be recorded somewhat casually because I'm looking for your feedback on the content and its delivery. And then, of course, eventually I will re-record it in a much more fantastic and dramatic way. So we're going to go through the chapter now on defining UX and practitioners. So this is aimed at explaining UX because we know that some people taking this course may be new to UX and may be surprised to learn some things about it. So let's start with what is UX? UX is the more scientific, psychological, and problem solving side of product, experience, and service design. Our goals include happier, more loyal customers, ease of learning and use, shorter, more intuitive processes, and accessibility for people with mobility, vision, or other issues. Now, accessibility really came to light in America, I think it was in 2017, when the uniform company decided, wouldn't it be cool if an all-red team played an all-green team? Now, that may look pretty spectacular or even Christmassy, but the problem was that people who have red-green color blindness, which is estimated to be about 8% of men and 2% of women, this is what they saw. To them, red and green are a similar shade of yellowy gray, more gray than anything else, and they could not tell who was on which team. Even former football players were tweeting, "I can't follow the game." It was pretty embarrassing for them that they did not have a consultant on staff to help them with accessibility. So it is part of UX. We do care about accessibility. We care about people with mobility, vision, and other issues. But that's a little warm up. We'll talk more about that later. So the origins of UX are really from mostly the 90s. It came about when psychologist and designer Don Norman created the term. UX is really a cousin of human factors and ergonomics. So the goal of human factors was to reduce human error, increase productivity, and enhance safety and comfort. UX does the same, but think about it instead of being a physical product like a desk chair. It's really about digital interfaces. And UX is also a cousin of industrial design. So in addition to considering aesthetics, usability, and ergonomics, industrial design can also encompass the engineering of objects, usefulness as well as usability, market placement, and other concerns. So UX is like the digital cousin of human factors, ergonomics, and industrial design. Now, where do most people get a UX education? Well, you're getting it from me, but of course, you do have other options because right now, UX education is really optional. I've got a degree in music. Some UX practitioners have no degree. Some might have a master's or a PhD. Oh gosh, my email's open. I'm so sorry. That's funny. That's why this is the draft. So as I was saying, some UX practitioners do go out and get degrees. You can even get a master's or PhD. Some go to trade schools. And of course, there's certainly this course. So while extensive UX education can be impressive on a resume, and there are certain jobs that will require it, I'm more looking at the portfolio, the approaches, and the natural talent. So having a degree in it is not mandatory. Again, to me, it's about talent and skill over education for most UX roles. I have a very small amount of natural visual design talent. It's truly sad. I could go to art school endlessly, but I would still end up as a mediocre at best artist because I just don't have a lot of natural talent. We all know people who don't have a lot of singing talent. We could send them for a lot of voice lessons, but they may never have an ear for it. So to me, working in UX is more about your talent, skill, strengths, and personality over what education did you receive. And we've got a later chapter looking at what those skills and strengths are. So let's take a look at the difference between UX and other similar or related disciplines that people normally confuse. When you think about UX, sometimes people confuse UX with, oh, I don't need UX, I have a website designer. Yeah, you might often hear that from small businesses more than corporate jobs or startups. But UX practitioners are looking to involve users at every step, while your website designer typically is not interviewing or testing real or archetypal customers. UX practitioners will use a variety of techniques, approaches, and processes that are unique to UX, whereas your website designer probably hasn't heard of UX processes or believes if they make some wireframes, they're doing UX. UX has many steps and tasks before designing a site, web page, app, interface. Your website designer is probably more focused on aesthetics than usability, and they're probably not focused on designing for customers' needs, habits, and motivations. Now, what about graphic design? There's huge confusion here. People think there's a super overlap where if you do UX, you must be an amazing visual designer. And if you do visual design, you're probably great at UX. And in fact, many visual designers often believe that because they work on interfaces, they're great at UX. And as a UX expert, I often disagree. And that can be a source of conflict. But I went to the websites of some well-known universities to check what types of classes you have to take to get a degree in UX or visual design. While we've established that a degree isn't necessary for either of these, and it's more about talent and skill, this slide should help you start to understand how UX and graphic design are different. Many people see designer in both job titles and think there's just a huge crossover. But being talented in UX doesn't mean you're a great artist. Being a great artist doesn't mean you're great at UX design. And many people are sure they're great at both, but it's rarer than people want to admit. UX practitioners are more concerned about processes, organization, layouts, and usability. A visual designer is normally focused more on the aesthetics of these elements, color choices, typography, spacing, brand, photography, iconography. Neither discipline's more important than the other. They just focus on different things. How about marketing? UX and marketing are often at odds because we have very different data. We have different data because we often ask different questions, so we get very different answers. Marketing might sometimes ask open-ended questions. While UX asks open-ended questions, marketing often shoots for numbers. X% of people are this, Y% of people told us they want this, Z% of people bought from us last month, A% of our customers use B type of smartphone and spend C dollars with us every D period of time. But UX is asking different questions. So marketing might say, would you buy this? Would your mom buy this? Would you pay for it? But thanks to cognitive psychology, UX recognizes that questions like this don't always bring out the truth. People want to say yes. They want to sound positive. Sure, they'll use it. Yes, they'll pay for it. Supposedly, Henry Ford said that if he had asked people what they had wanted, they would have said faster horses, not cars. Even if he didn't say that, we see the point. If you ask people, what would you like this product to do? You've already limited them. It has to be this product and something you can imagine doing to this product. My favorite question to ask when I do UX research, which we'll study more about later, is if you had all the magical powers in the world and they were focused on this issue, what could you dream of creating that would be an improvement over what you're doing now? Sometimes people ask for incredibly mundane things that your company can absolutely build. And what's the difference between UX and CX? More and more people are becoming aware of CX. And so UX, of course, is interactions typically with digital interfaces. But that can be expanded. So usually UX is a subset, in a sense, of CX. CX would be all experiences with the brand, the perception of the brand, any physical interactions like going into a store, the customer support, customer service, customer loyalty. These are all part of CX. So UX does get into CX a little bit if you end up in a discipline called service design, where you're designing a service rather than a digital product. But normally CX is the bigger picture and UX is the child. So check this out. I'm a lifelong Disney World fan. No matter what you think of the mouse or the company, Disney World in Florida is considered to be one of the best spots on the planet for amazing customer service. That would be part of CX, customer experience. My experience using an interface to order my lunch in Disney World is UX. but the overall customer service is CX. This is a photo of 2 fast passes I got for anywhere in the park for me and up to 5 people. That means we can wait on a much shorter line, even for a very popular ride. How did I get these golden tickets? I ordered dinner in one of the Magic Kingdom's nicer sit-down restaurants. The waitress eventually came over and apologized that the food was taking so long. I said, I don't mind. I'm here alone. First day of vacation. Don't worry about it. A few minutes later, a manager came over. Ma'am, we're so sorry that your food is taking so long. Please accept a free dessert on us. Well, I hadn't been planning on having dessert, but well, okay, thank you very much. But really, it's no trouble at all. This isn't taking long at all. The manager then came back with these. I guess to Disney World, every minute past X minutes that you are not out having fun on their rides, you might be unhappy, dissatisfied, even resentful. They're solving a problem before it's even a problem with amazing customer service. I asked for none of this, but I got free dessert and fast passes. That's CX. Someone put a process in place that says when dinner is late by X minutes, do this. Late by Y minutes, do this. As a UX designer who also specializes in designing services, I might have been part of the process of designing that. But typically, anything that's not a digital interface is often outside of UX. So this is CX. Another example is I recently stayed in a hotel room whose air conditioning wasn't working. When I went to the front desk to ask for service, the front desk guy told me, "Ma'am, it's cool outside. Just open your window." That has nothing to do with UX, but it's poor customer service. It doesn't fix my broken air conditioner. And with no window screen, it lets in bugs, humidity, and I got to spend the night listening to the loud giggling party on the outside patio. It's CX because it affected my experience and maybe even what I think of the brand, but it had nothing to do with how I interacted with the air conditioning device. CX is huge and important. UX is often seen as a subset. We've all seen the equivalent of this on websites and apps. We ask customers to work around our flaws. Great UX practitioners wouldn't design a system that asked people to work around flaws. And UX is evolving at an exponential pace. In the past 10 years, UX has started to design for touchscreens, smartwatches, wearables, talking thermostats. And each time each of these products appeared or changed, there were so many things that changed with it. How will they pay from a watch? How will they listen to music from a tablet? How will they make calls from their car dashboard? How will they talk to this speaker thing standing in their homes? How can they wave their arms and have a video game system see them moving? Even accessibility is evolving. More and more companies are caring about the spectrum of users they truly have. We're designing for blind people, deaf people, and people with mobility issues, and we need to keep doing more of this. Since so many people misunderstand UX, I've seen it thrown into just about every area of an organization you can imagine. I've seen UX answer to marketing. The problem there is that when we disagree with marketing, which can be often, I should really close Slack too. Start again. When we disagree with marketing, which is often, guess who loses? And I've seen UX answer to engineering. The problem there was that engineering expected our processes to be more concrete, less creative, and easier to time box than they are. This created a lot of natural conflict, which means UX as a subset of engineering is also a poor match. I've seen the most success when UX is its own department with its own head, director, or VP, and ultimately answers organizationally at a very high level to product, since at our core, UX practitioners are product designers. However, UX still needs some autonomy, since product very often is excited about their roadmap and ideas. UX can suffer when too much is dictated or prescribed by product. Additionally, the best organizational approach, in my opinion, is for visual design or graphic design and copy to be part of the UX department. When we go through what the UX process contains, this idea will really click for you, but for now it might be a bit abstract. So what kind of UX roles are out there? Well, some are fairly clear and some are ambiguous, not from the sense of what does the role do, but just that people are confused by titles. Even hiring managers and HR can be confused by titles. So we've got UX architect, UX designer. Those are sometimes the same thing. These are people doing UX designs. We have UX strategist. That could be someone who's doing a design. It could be somebody who's more on the strategic side. Someone who says they are an interaction designer normally focuses on the part of UX that is just usually wireframes and prototypes. Again, when we talk about the process later, you'll see where these pieces fit. Someone who says they're a UX researcher is probably a specialist just in UX research and might not be a designer. Same for usability tester. Sometimes people are specialists and experts in testing and do not do the design. Sometimes these overlap. An information architect and content strategist, these are again two parts of the UX process we'll learn about later, but sometimes they are independent specialties. I have met people whose sole job was information architecture, which is a subset of UX. And UX in job titles might be written as user experience or experience. Now, more ambiguous would be when you see things like UI designer. When I see UI designer in a job title, I'm not totally sure what they're shooting for. Some companies think UI design is UX. Some think that means visual designer. I tend to think of a UI designer as a graphic designer and not necessarily a UX job. Sometimes you see them combined, UX UI designer or UI UX designer. And that's usually a job where they're looking for people to be amazing experts in both. So you'd have to read the job description to know what they're shooting for. UX prototyper is another one that can be a little unclear. You'll need to read the job description to know whether they're okay with you using software for prototyping like InVision or Axure. Axure's my favorite. Or whether they expect you to write code. And then, of course, there's product designer. That could be a UX specialist, but to some companies, especially if they don't fully understand UX, a product designer could be the artist.